The purpose of this PowerPoint is for you to attempt to complete a past paper question. It's split into 3 different sections. In the first section, you're going to be given the exam question, and the aim is that you just try it on your own and you see how far you can get through the past paper question. Hopefully you'll be able to do it all on your own. If you find that you're struggling, then you can move on to section 2, where I'm going to give you a few little hints and some tips on how to perhaps get started, so then you can have another go at the past paper question. And if you're still totally confused, then you can move on to section 3, where I'll go through the whole question in lots of detail. So this past paper question is on graph transformations. Press pause now and have a go at it completely on your own. Hopefully you can do it all without any hints, and then you can have a look at the mark scheme, which is at the end. So press pause now and have a go. If you're watching this slide, then it must mean you've already tried the question on your own. If you haven't, please stop me now and have a go at it on your own first. I'm just going to try and give you some help on this slide to push you in the right direction if you're not sure how to start. So in this question, we've got the diagram shows a graph of y equals f of x. They're showing us a picture of a graph, they're calling it f of x, and it says that it has its highest point at 4, 2, and it indicates where it goes through the x-axis. So it's going through at the origin and at 8, 0. Now in part A, it's asking us to sketch the graph of y equals 2f of x plus 3. So what they've done is they've introduced a 2 in front, and they've also put a plus 3 in the bracket. So we need to think very carefully about what the plus 3 means, and we also need to think very carefully about what that 2 means. Now, one of them is outside the function, that 2 is outside of the f function, and the plus 3 is inside the function, inside the bracket. If something is introduced outside of the function, it means that it changes the y coordinates. And if a number is introduced inside the function, it means that it changes the x coordinates. When you change y coordinates, you do exactly what it says. So it says you times 2, because that 2 in front means we're timesing by 2. So you would multiply all of the y coordinates by 2. When you change the x coordinates, you do the opposite to what it says. So if it says add 3, you would actually subtract 3. So what you can do now is you can think about where the 3 points that they've marked on the picture, where would they go to? If you change the y's and the x's in that way, where would those points go to? And then try and draw a picture and mark those coordinates on. Now you can use exactly the same method on part B. I won't go through that one in so much detail. But have a look at what numbers they've introduced. Look at whether they're inside or outside the function. Decide then whether that's going to change the x's or the y's, and in what way. And then you should be able to draw that graph as well. Make sure you do it on a separate diagram. It does mention that. If you try and draw them both on one diagram, it's going to become really messy. Right, press pause now and have a go at this one completely on your own. Right, if you're watching this slide, it means that you're still not sure how to do these questions. So I'm going to try and help you now through them in detail. So I already mentioned on the slide before this one, but in part A, there's a 2 and a 3 that's been introduced. The 2 is outside the function, which means that it changes the y coordinates. And when you change y coordinates, you do exactly what it says. So if it says they're times 2, you times them all by 2. This plus 3 is inside the function, and when a number is inside the function, it means that it changes the x coordinates. And when you change x coordinates, you always do the opposite to what it says. So if it says plus 3, you're actually going to take away 3. So what you might want to do, question A, is maybe make a list of the coordinates in the original question, which are 0, 0, 4, 2, and 8, 0. and then just work out where they are going to go. So I know that I'm going to take 3 off the x coordinates, so 0 take away 3 is -3. And I also know that I'm going to times the y coordinates by 2. 0 times 2 is 0. So in my new diagram, that point is going to have moved to -3, 0. Let's do the same on the next one. My x coordinate, I've got to take 3 off. 4 take away 3 is 1. And the y coordinate, I've got to multiply by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Same on the last one. Let's take 3 off the x coordinates. That becomes 5. And then times the y coordinate by 2. 0 times 2 is 0. So in my picture, sorry, this is not going to be very neat, but in my picture, if I mark those 3 points off, -3, 0, 1, 4, and then 5, 0. I know that the picture is going to be the same shape as it was earlier. Still going to be made up of those straight lines. I'm just going to mark off the points -3, 0, 1, 4, and 5, 0. Now I'm just going to read through the question again to make sure that I've put on everything they asked for. It says to sketch this indicating the coordinates of the highest point, I've done that, look, 1, 4, and of the points where the graph intersects the x-axis, and I've done both of those as well. So that's part A done. I'm going to go on to the next slide to do part B. So I'm moving on now to part B, and I'm first of all going to have a look at what numbers they've introduced. There's a 2 and there's a +1. And I'm first going to think about where they are. So that 2 there is inside the function, it's inside the bracket. It's f of, and then in brackets 2x. If the number is introduced inside a function, then it changes the x coordinates. And when you change x coordinates, you always do the opposite to what it says. So that 2x there, that's like a 2 times x, isn't it? That x is being times by 2. Well, I need to do the opposite to that, so I need to divide the x coordinates by 2. Now I'm going to have a look at the green bit. That +1 is outside the function, it's outside the bracket. So that means it changes the y coordinates. When you change y coordinates, you do exactly what it says. So if this is add 1, we add 1 to them. So let me make a list of the old coordinates. So the old coordinates were 0, 0, 4, 2, and 8, 0. And let's work out where they are going to move to if we do these things. So first of all, I'm looking at the x coordinates and I need to divide them by 2. 0 divided by 2 is 0. All the x's. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. So they're my x coordinates. They're all half as big as they used to be. Sorry about that buzzing noise. It's my charger kicking in. So moving on to the y coordinates, I need to add 1 onto all of them. So if I add 1 onto each of these, they're going to become 1, 3, and 1. So I now know that I need to mark those points off on my new picture. So I'm going to have 0, 1 there. Then I'm going to have 2, 3 and 4, 1. It's going to be the same shape as earlier. So the highest point this time now is at 2, 3. The point that it goes through the y-axis there is 0, 1. And this point over here is 4, 1. Now I'm just going to double check that I've marked off everything they asked for. So they asked me to indicate the coordinates of the highest point. Well, that's the 2, 3, so that's already done. And the point where the graph meets the y-axis. Well, I've done that one, it's 0, 1. I've put on an extra point, 4, 1. They haven't asked me for it, but I'm not going to lose marks for giving extra information. As long as I've got the 2 things they asked for, then I know I'm going to get the full marks.